What is up, bros? Josh here, and today's video is all about the Tier 8 IJN Premium Destroyer, the Asashio, and is it worth it? In this video, we'll go over the stats of the ship, compare it to its Tier 8 counterparts, and show you some gameplay, and I'll give you my thoughts on whether the ship is worth it. In the end, it's 100% up to you, though, because this ship is either sold for money or doubloons, so it's your doubloons, your money, and your time. I will try to give you as good of a insight on this ship as possible, and let you make as good of a decision as you can. So first, let's dive into the stats of the ship, and we'll compare it to some other Tier 8 destroyers that you'll see on a regular basis. But first, let's quickly look at the modules as well as the captain ability. So the modules first, this is what I'm running. Pretty basic, pretty standard for IJN DDs. Main armament mod, you're going to want to protect both your main battery and your torpedoes, as well as propulsion. You don't want to lose that any time because it could be death, basically, even with last stand. Aiming system, now nothing really else is here. Your A isn't good enough, and main battery mod 2 is kind of worthless. So aiming system, getting those main battery as accurate as possible. Steering gear is here. This is a no-brainer to me. And then, of course, concealment, you are an IJN DD, as well as ammunition. We're running full upgrades here, and we're taking the only upgrades because this is the only choice you get. Now, this ship does have torpedo boost, which you'll see on other IJN DDs like the Kagero, as well as the Akazuki, as well as the Hirakaze on one of the hulls. So this is fantastic and can affect your captain build. Now, the captain build I am running, this is actually my Shimakaze captain. So if I was making a pure Asashio captain, I would be a little different than this, and I will show you which skills I would probably switch around. But priority target, I think this is basic. I run this on every one of my DDs, and I almost think it's mandatory. The information you can get from this is priceless. Last stand, no-brainer, should be running on nearly every destroyer. I think if you are caught without this, it can mean death. Now, survivability expert, I like this because there are obviously more and more planes in the sky, and you want to survive into the late game as much as possible. So the bigger the health pool, the better, and taking this is wonderful. Concealment expert, no-brainer. Obviously, you want to be lowest detection possible. Now, I use radio location. Now, some people may wonder why, because my torps can't hit other DDs or cruisers, only battleships and CVs. They are the deep water torps. And the reason is radio location not only gives you the ability to have some aggression against other DDs, but it is more of defensive. I will know where the DDs are coming from, and then I will actually spot them before they spot me, which will give me the advantage to potentially give my teammates some information so they can support me. You are pretty threatening to destroyers, but some DDs will always have the advantage over you. That's just something you have to deal with. But that extra information can really make or break you winning gun battles or losing gun battles. Now, this is my Shima captain, so I am running BFT. I really enjoy this, but since we have the both extra smoke as well as the torp booster, Superintendent is pretty strong for Asashios and definitely worth picking up if you can. Also, torpedo armament expertise, I'm not using it on this captain, and I'll show you in just a second what the impact could have. But some people do run these because these are 20-kilometer torps. And then, of course, Adrenaline Rush. Can't really go wrong with that. But the stats themselves, hit points, again, with Survivability Expert, almost 18,000, which gets you pretty competitive for Tier 8, almost on the higher end. Other things like the Kid and the things like the Akazuki and the Benson are going to have a tad higher, but still pretty competitive. 3 sets of 2 on the turrets. Now, this is with BFT, but we are down to 6.3 seconds. I believe it is a 7-second base reload. So that is pretty nice, getting the reload down as fast as possible because the alpha damage is actually quite high. 6 shells going out with a max HE shell damage of 2150. So you're going to be getting some 3-4K salvos on DDs if you're hitting all your shells. It's quite deadly. Now, AFT, you don't need it because main battery is 10.9, and you don't want to be gun boating all the time, but don't be afraid to use your guns. Now, this is one thing I was talking about. 2 sets of 4 on a 112-second reload. Now, you could get that down a little bit with the torpedo reload armament. I don't use that, though, but definitely worth picking up if you want. But the deep water torps deals damage to CVs and battleships only. So this is something that you kind of have to look for. Again, you can't hit DDs, so radio location is more defensive than offensive, but that 20-kilometer range. This is what I'm talking about for the torpedo acceleration. So what some people will take here is they will drop this to get the range down to 16 kilometers torpedo range, and then they'll bump it up to 72 knots. So they're basically impossible to avoid. And since they are deep water torps, some of the stealthiest in the game at 0.9 kilometers. So good luck avoiding something not only at 67 knots, but at 72, it's basically impossible to avoid. One of the things though, 20 kilometers, you get random hits every once in a while, so I think it is definitely worth it. You just have to be a tad more aware of what is behind the enemy ships, as crazy as that sounds, because 20 kilometers is a large part of most maps. Normally, especially in tier 8s, it can be 2/3 to half the size of the map. So you have to be careful of what you're putting torps on in front of you, and then if you have friendly ships behind those, especially battleships or aircraft carriers. But there are several games where all of a sudden you'll get a random torp hit on a CV that's not spotted, on a battleship that isn't spotted, or a battleship you weren't even aiming for. I call them collateral damage. The ship can get a lot of those, so these torps are quite deadly. Also, even with 67 knots, I will launch torps even if something's in front of me, and they'll spot them because they're still so fast, and I'll still get torp hits. So you can obviously pick up a couple things here. So torpedo acceleration to get those torpedoes a tad faster, but you drop the range down to 16 kilometers. Still plenty, as well as torpedo armament, dropping that reload time down to down much lower, I think even under 100 seconds. So pretty good, but this is what I'm running. I feel like this is very effective, and I like having a bit more ability to defend myself with BFT. So that's why I'm running the Captain IM. Basically none, so you are going to be a bit susceptible to CVs, but basically every destroyer is, so you just kind of have to be careful. You're going to be keeping your AA off in most situations. Also, one of the things that you do have an advantage of is 35 knots, fine on that, fairly maneuverable, but you do have a very low detection, the lowest in this matchmaking of the tier 8, basically the tier 8, tier 10 in that matchmaking. One of the lowest, 5.4 kilometers, and then 2.4 by air. So you're actually quite hard to actually find when it comes to CVs, and then it's very hard for them to line up because your 2.4 kilometer by air is very, very low. So keeping the AA off can actually keep you alive in a lot of situations. However, there's fighters over you or whatever, you definitely do just want to turn them on. So this ship itself can be extremely good. Other ships that are fairly similar. Also, if you have the ability to get the Asashio B, I just think it looks cooler. I think this is one of the coolest looking camos they put out. But there's both Asashio B. There's no difference, just different camos. But other things are going to have similar playstyle. So if you enjoy the Kagero, however, the Kagero has the normal torps, which can hit everything, as well as the Herikaze, which also has 10 kilometers. These are 10 kilometer torps, though, and normal torps, so they're going to hit TDs. However, very similar playstyles. Obviously, the Herikaze has some different hulls you can choose from to get different playstyles. But if you enjoy IJN boats like the Kagero or even other new premiums like the Yukikaze, these are a tad more of the traditional ship. This is a bit more of the focus on certain things very well, which is taking out battleships. Again, only CVs and battleships, so you're limited to 2 classes. So that will affect your game if you get 1 battleship or if you get 7. Obviously, the more the merrier. But one thing I did notice is that you do very well bottom tier or top tier. Also, this ship is available in the premium store for what, $42? This is USD, so whatever the conversion is for you, $42.35, as well as you can pick it up in the armory. If you go to the armory, they are selling it for doubloons. If we can click down here and go to doubloons, you can also pick it up. I can't see the price, so I think it's somewhere in 8 to 10,000 right there. But still, if you have some doubloons laying around, or if you have some money you want to throw into, those are the prices we'll look at when I'm talking about this ship. And let's check out some gameplay and show what this Asashio can do even at bottom tier. Now here we are in game with the Asashio, and honestly, when I played this ship, we're bottom tier right now, so we're going against ships that are kind of going to pick on us a little bit gun-wise, but I still find the Asashio's guns fairly competitive. Now, you'll see me go against this gearing in a fight too, and you will see how I approach it when I get to that situation. But really, of course, when you're playing Asashio, what do you want? You want as many battleships as possible. Luckily, I almost like being bottom tiered in the Asashio, and usually when you are a destroyer and you enjoy being bottom tiered because there's more damage to go on, you tend to be a little bit stronger. Now, in the end, obviously, this is a tier 8 premium ship, and it is only available for doubloons. Obviously, you could potentially get it from a super container or one of the Christmas containers, but we'll mainly focus on just the purchase price itself. So it's going to have a tier 8 purchase price. It's going to be in the $30 to $40, depending on where you are. That's USD, on top of whatever package you want to buy. So that price is pretty steep. So in the end, it is going to be your money. However, this ship is one that I don't really care if it's bottom tier or top tier. I almost prefer to be bottom tier, mid tier maybe, because if I'm mid tier, that means I can have some ships that both don't completely outgun me. Now, if I'm going against something like the Haragumo or a lot of just the tier 10 destroyers. It does get kind of spicy. However, you can use your stealth to kind of spot them and get an advantage. However, of course, the higher ships you get, especially destroyers, more radar, everything. So really though, with this kind of ship, I tend to get tad aggressive at the start. Now, obviously, we do not have a CV in this game. I know everyone will say, wow, play this ship once it's a CV. CVs kill this kind of ship, blah, 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 blah. You have to remember now, that CVs no longer spot torps, so you're relatively strong when it comes to that because you can still do it. But really, talk about a lot of destroyers these days, and it's really hard to say that certain DDs really excel when it comes to CV games. Even the highest AA destroyer, the Grozavoy Gearing, can still get picked on by CVs. Obviously, they will shoot down more planes, but since you are so stealthy and your detection is so low, it's actually quite hard to find an Asashio because your air detection is so low. Obviously, you'll keep your AA off the majority of the time, and then going on that. But if you do get spotted, obviously you might get hunted down. But you can basically say that for a Benson. You can say that for a Hirakazu. You can literally say that for everything. But with a lack of spotting both on the destroyers, and this is why I kind of like to get a little aggressive when it comes to both the Asashio and some other DDs, is I went to B cap. And as you see, both DDs did not go middle. I don't know why none of their destroyers went middle, but hell, we are in Asashio, and they're going to let us purely go right down the middle and enjoy this free farm that is. And I was a little bummed out. I was hoping to, with a lot of how Mountain Range works, is you are going from side to side, and you can usually kind of get maybe a battleship in the transition. But they got over there a little bit earlier than expected. They had some battleship spawns. So you see I'm right in the middle, literally heading due south in the middle of the map, and battleships are on both sides. But we have a Gearing right there. He's the closest target. But this is what I'm kind of talking about. Now, I'm obviously not going to be a Gearing. And yes, the Asashio does have guns. We will be using them. I use them all the time because they hit extremely hard. But I'm not going to beat a Gearing 1v1. It just doesn't happen. They're going to pump out too much damage. He has more life than me. He has more DPM than me. He has all this stuff. However, though, I will wait for my Lion. I will keep this DD spotted, and I'll wait for my Lion to basically cut him in half health-wise. Again, making sure that we don't have a destroyer on the other side, and then I will engage. So this is a good key to learn. Yes, when you see, oh my god, what is this Asashio doing? Is he a bot? He's actually firing his guns. No, the guns on IJN DDs are quite strong. However, DPM, or damage per minute, DPS, damage per second, however you want to explain it, is lower. The alpha damage, which is the damage per hit on each of these salvos, is quite high. So that's kind of why you have an advantage in certain situations where something is low. So if you see a DD at 3 or 4K, you can potentially one salvo that DD if you hit all of your shells. But with the Asashio having these strong IJN guns, I mean, we're hitting them pretty hard, as well as pumping out damage on these battleships that are just kind of sitting there. So, but yeah, I'm not going to just not fire at that. It's too good of a situation. But as you saw, I waited. I kept him spotted. I got into a situation where I could help out with my Lion, pumping out a salvo on him, which then chunked him for about 9K, and then I engaged. I didn't engage when he was full life. I waited and helped my team get that kind of kill, kept him spotted. And there we go. We were able to then pump out damage and actually get the kill on a destroyer that you would look at normally and go, that's going to be a problem for me because he's just so much better. That ship is just so much better at going destroyer versus destroyer than the Asashio. Also, he has torps that can hit me, and I have torps that only hit battleships and CVs. That's one thing too I kind of noticed when I was playing this ship and would get top tiered, is you can, now obviously I am running the 20s as we talked about with the captain build. I'm running the 20Ks. You can kind of laughably get random, and because these torps are so hard to see because the detection is so low, I was getting random. You'll just get like random torp hits. But you do need to be careful, and this is one thing I was kind of scared about. As you see, I am still running the 20Ks, but the GK was right there. So I was very careful to not just lackadaisically launch torps. So if I like launch torps this way, I could potentially hit my own Yamato. So you do have to be careful when you are playing ships like this, or like other stuff with just long range torps like the Shimakaze, and so whatever, of what you could potentially hit, especially friendly battleships. So just be very careful. Look at that outer range if you're running 16s, if you're running 20s. Just be careful if you are launching torps that they are outside that range, or as this guy has, an island in between. We are going to launch them. And one thing is too, normally in a lot of situations like this, if those were 16-kilometer gearing torps, they probably wouldn't reach since he was about 12 km away. But since these are 20 kilometers and pretty dang fast, I figured that they would have the range to hit them. So we were able to kind of do that. One of the upsides. But I think I'm probably more aggressive than most people in my Asashio because I want to help take out. And with the Benson, without Survivability Expert, I am 100% confident I win this fight. No problem. I am completely confident I win this fight, especially if he's ripple firing. That's easy peasy. Just my health, 3,500 on that hit. I have support as well. We even hit a torpedo on the Montana, and he's going to flood. I'm not really worried. So a lot of people will look at these ships and go, well, the IJN guns aren't super good. It's a torp boat, blah, blah, blah. If you kind of pigeonhole yourself into one playstyle and don't use all the tools available, you're not really helping your case of kind of getting the full potential of this ship. We're going to go out and end up killing 2 of these DDs pretty handily with these IJN guns. Now, I'm not saying that you're going to go out and be a gunboat, or you're going to go out and be this ship that's going to go play Kaba, but in situations like this, with a Benson that's ripple firing and has no last stand, you need to take advantage of these and do your team some help in getting those destroyer kills. That's basically a free kill for us. So I tend to play this thing a little aggressive because since it does have, you have that 5.4 kilometer detection, you do have the ability to kind of just outspot nearly everything other than some IJN DDs, and even going against most IJN DDs outside of maybe the Yugumo, obviously the gunboats, Akazuki, Kitakaze, and the Haragumo, you can actually be quite competitive. Now you're going to run into some stuff too, like the Jutland will be pretty scary for you since they kind of slow, agile. They have sonar to spot the torps for their teammates. You know, that's going to be a little scary, but that's scary. The ships that are scary for you are scary for literally every other destroyer in this game. So using the stealth, using the torps, and not being afraid to use the guns. But I will be relatively aggressive on caps. I know I'm going to outspot nearly everything. The only other ships that are this stealthy around this tier and in this matchmaking are other ships just like me. So you're gonna have stuff like the Gigero, the Yugumo. Other than that, you outspot everything else, so you have that advantage on those ships, and we can continue to just pump out torps on these. And this is why I don't mind being bottom tier, because those battleships have so much more life than tier 8 battleships. It's amazing. And really, if you are playing the Asashio when it comes to being top tiered, it's kind of it's kind of a bully ship in a way. It's so fast. You're so competitive with guns against basically every other tier 8 destroyer. I mean, just tier 8 versus tier 8, if you play it correctly, you kind of beat a lot of stuff. The only ships that are really going to consistently beat you are USS Kids, some Bensons, some Lo Yangs, and Harakazes, maybe Akazukis. Other than that, you kind of have an advantage on nearly everything. Kievs, obviously, but you just spot those and they'll just die. But this is what you can do. And it's like a great game, Asashio. All I did was click my mouse. The torps do the jobs themselves, using those torp reload booster as I'm going to use right here, and getting into situations where you can support your team, not only with spotting, but with guns on DDs, with torps on battleships, and in all types of different situations. And now we have a Missouri and a Montana and a relatively low life Buffalo. I was even thinking, I was like, man, can I gunboat down this Buffalo? Is that doable? I was trying to maybe time up a double strike here. I was thinking, hey, can I even get a triple strike? Because he just took a decent hit here. But there's the radar as well from the Missouri. And since I'm radared, might as well just shoot. We're in the area by at least 1 kilometer. So we're going to kind of go for it and pump out some damage and do some decent damage, actually, to this Buffalo. But the Missouri is going to take some damage. This ship will stack up damage extremely fast. You can get a dev strike. There's so many dev strikes you'll get with this ship, especially with the torpedo loader. And there we go, a nice little hit right there. So in a matter of just a few seconds, we were able to get, what was that, 60,000 damage without really trying. Buffalo, we're gonna miss, I think, just the double strike window by just a tad here. So he's going to go down. Nice couple kills, taking out radar ships, and really just showing how easy. Again, right here is a perfect example of just not throwing out your torps because you're just way too sketchy with that Yamato being there as well as that Lion. So obviously just a very fun ship. If you are looking for a ship that is not only fun, very trolly, you know, I don't think there's a ship that really has much more of an impact on a single game surface ship wise. I mean, there's a couple, maybe the Conqueror, you know, there's a few other ships that are these insane ships, but the Asashio, for being a tier 8 ship, not only extremely fun but extremely effective at what it does, can really be impactful on the game, can be a complete powerhouse of a ship, both top tier, bottom tier, no matter what tier you're in. And obviously can make a ton of credits, a ton of XP. Now, obviously, I had the Gamescon camo, I had flags on, I had all this stuff. This is on my alt account too. So this is a really good credit maker because you tend to do lots of damage. However, most of your damage is reliant on how many battleships there are. So if there's a 4 battleship, 5 battleship game, you have the potential for a lot of damage. If there's a 2-1 or 2, potentially there's none. Obviously, there were games in the Asashio, you are limited to just how much you can do with your torps only hitting battleships and CVs, not being against destroyers and cruisers. There were games that we've had in this where all the battleships went to one side and we went to the other side and we got unlucky. But I found this ship to be fairly consistent, even though you are so reliant on only doing classes to 2 of them. And I will say there is not a better feeling in the world than getting like a random hit, a random torp hit on a CV that's just not moving. It's awesome. Again, on my main account I run the 16 kilometers. On the alt account I was running 20. Both of them seem to be very effective, and I actually enjoy the 20s. You just have to be careful with how far they go. But overall, a very fun game, a very fun ship, and an extremely effective ship at doing what it does. So is it worth it? You know, since this one is purchased only through the premium store, you might be able to pick it up through doubloons in game at some point in the future with how the arsenal is working. Also, if you get lucky enough to get it, I like this ship a lot. I think all battleship players probably hate me saying that, but this is one if you have the ability to pick it up, it's nothing but fun. If you want to go out there, get some torp hits on stuff, and just make a lot of credits, make some XP, this is one I highly recommend. And this is coming from somebody who doesn't like IJN torp boats, so just keep that in mind. This one has I would say quite converted me, but if I have to go with one, it's going to be this. It's an extremely strong ship. But anyways, guys, that's it for me for the Asashio Is It Worth It video. Hope this video helps you out and gives you some insight on this tier 8 premium destroyer. Anyways, guys, that's it for me. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. Remember to like, subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time.